People always say don't poke the bear if you're not ready for the consequences, but I guess Miranda Harrington never got that memo. There she was standing on my property line at Willowbrook Heights, spitting out people who dare to go against HOA authority should be living in the underworld like she was the queen of suburbia. She clicked that brand new electronic lock right on the main gate, my main gate, mind you, like she'd just declared victory. Only problem, she picked the wrong guy to mess with. 3 days later, her world started to unravel. See, that's the funny thing about thinking you're in charge when the ground you're standing on doesn't actually belong to you. Her precious VIP guests, all dressed up and desperate, ended up renting out my grandfather's cabin just to keep their event going. Meanwhile, I just sat back and watched the dominoes fall. Because what I had in my hands wasn't just some petty revenge or neighborhood drama, it was the key to burning down an empire built on lies, secrets, and more than a few $1,000,000 funneled through the darkest corners of the real estate world. You ever see a David versus Goliath story blow up across every news channel in the state? Yeah, that happened. My name's Ethan Caldwell, and inheriting my grandpa's land was supposed to be a blessing, a chance to hold on to a little piece of legacy. 8 acres, a cabin, an old fishing creek winding through oak trees back when I was a kid. It felt like another planet. Grandpa Joe always told me, if you're not here, Ethan, this land dies with me. And after he passed, I took that seriously, especially being the last Caldwell standing since Dad died in 2010. What I didn't know, that patch of earth was the bullseye in a game so dirty, it'd take down everyone who thought they could just buy out the past and erase the Caldwell name for good. Willowbrook Heights, what a name, right? Used to be. A few homes and some honest families then turned into this luxury oasis, clubhouses, tennis courts, resort pools, high-end everything. By the time Miranda showed up as HOA president, you'd think she was running the Ritz. Except her dream neighborhood had a problem. Every single wire, road, and utility from internet to sewer ran straight through my property. The original developers must have thought Grandpa would sell eventually, but they didn't count on a stubborn IT guy with a knack for reading fine print and a long memory. Miranda started polite, then got pushy, letters, meetings, community improvement threats. Her whole act reeked of legal muscle. She was a former real estate attorney, the type who knows how to bend the rules just enough to make you feel trapped, but not enough to get herself in trouble. That Tuesday morning, everything changed. I was fixing a client's security bug when I heard car doors, looked out, and saw Miranda storming up my porch with 2 suits and a woman hauling a surveyor's kit. She didn't knock, just pounded on my door and shoved a folder in my chest. This is your final notice. Sell for fair market value, or we'll be forced to take alternative measures. Let me tell you, their fair market number was an insult, half what the land was worth, and all of it based on the assumption that I was just some old fool they could squeeze. So I said, Miranda, you want this land, you'll have to figure out how to do it without my 8 acres. It's not for sale. And that's when the mask slipped. She stepped in, voice low, threatening in that way folks like her think is subtle. People who dare to go against the HOA should be living in the underworld. You have no idea who you're up against. Then she walked over, locked the main entrance with this fancy biometric system, and said, let's see how the residents feel when they're locked out because of your selfishness. What she didn't realize, that gate wasn't on HOA land. It was my grandfather's easement, which made what she just did a felony 6 times over. She'd trapped herself and every resident inside her luxury complex, and when I realized what I could do with that, I started to grin. Because every service they relied on, water, power, cable, internet, had to cross my dirt. And she'd just given me a front row seat to tear down her little kingdom. Next morning, I took my coffee out on the porch and watched chaos unfold. Horns blaring, people yelling, nobody could get out for work or pick up their kids, rich folks suddenly living in a gated prison. I walked out to my utility shed and started flipping switches. First, the internet went dark, saw people staring at dead screens and cursing into their phones. Then the cable feed so long, "Good Morning America." Last came the power, half the place went black, and suddenly everyone was scrambling. I could hear Miranda on her phone shrieking about sabotage and criminal activity, but what I'd done was perfectly legal. Those easements only let them run lines. They didn't say a thing about me controlling my own property. Then I pulled the real ace, opened my laptop, and slipped a logic bomb into the HOA's network. Financial records, resident files, everything ticking down to deletion in 72 hours, unless you had the right password, and I was the only one who did. For fun, I set up a Wi-Fi hotspot, named it "Miranda is a Criminal." People logged on anyway, desperate for a signal, and every time they did, her name glared back at them, a little reminder of who really locked them in. By late afternoon, the news crews were outside the gate, interviewing angry residents, some trapped inside, some locked out. Emergency vehicles couldn't get in, kids couldn't get home, food deliveries stacked up by the fence, and Miranda's PR nightmare was viral by lunchtime. But while she was running around trying to keep her empire from collapsing, I was preparing for the real show. Because in 3 days, she was supposed to host the biggest VIP event in Willowbrook history. Hundreds of investors, buyers, business execs, all expecting champagne, 5-star service, seamless Wi-Fi, the works. What they got was a taste of what happens when you push a Caldwell too far. By the time they showed up, all dressed to the nines, they found themselves locked out, staring at dead cell towers and a resort that looked more like a haunted house. Here's where it gets good. One of the first VIPs, this polished woman in her 50s, knocked on my door looking like she'd just survived the apocalypse. "I heard you've got internet. Can I rent a spot?" "Name your price." I charged her 5 times what was fair, and she paid in cash. No questions asked. Word spread, and suddenly my little cabin was the hottest co-working space in town. Investors, execs, even a couple of desperate HOA board members all paid me for a patch of Wi-Fi and a folding table on my deck. But I started noticing weird things, folks asking about financials, some snapping photos of documents, one woman running forensic software that looked straight out of the FBI. Turns out some of those VIPs weren't buyers at all. They were federal agents undercover running an investigation into HOA corruption. That woman, Special Agent Sarah Chin. She flashed a badge and dropped the bomb. "We're investigating a multi-state money laundering operation using fake real estate deals as cover. Willowbrook Heights is at the center." That hit me like a freight train. Turns out Miranda's little HOA wasn't just a club for retired lawyers. It was a front for cleaning cartel money. Her VIP event, a massive laundering conference with cartel reps and crooked officials flying in to seal the next phase. And this is where my world cracked open. The last guy who tried to expose the truth, my father. They called his death a car accident, but Agent Chen handed me the file. My dad had been investigating the same fraud and ended up dead as soon as he started asking questions. I'd spent years building a case of my own: secret recordings, intercepted emails, security footage, everything I could gather. When Agent Chen saw my evidence stash, her jaw hit the floor. "You have enough here to bring down the entire network." We found records tying Miranda not just to money laundering, but to the murder of anyone who got in her way, including my dad. And as we dug deeper, it got even uglier. The real mastermind wasn't Miranda at all, but a guy named Marcus Davidson, the mayor. The same man who'd shaken my hand at barbecues and posed for photos at charity galas. He'd spent years running the whole racket, pulling Miranda's strings by threatening her family. And just as everything was coming to a head, Davidson himself showed up, big SUV, 2 bodyguards walking into my cabin, thinking he'd take control. What he didn't know was that every word, every threat, every handshake was being recorded by federal agents posing as stranded VIPs. Miranda walked in right behind him, calm for the first time since this all began, and dropped a briefcase on the table packed with documents, recordings, even a confession from Davidson's own father, the original cartel boss. "You thought I was working for you," she told Davidson. But I've been collecting evidence for 25 years. You killed my family, and now I'm going to finish you." Within minutes, the place exploded with federal agents Davidson, his bodyguards, and half the HOA board all hauled out in cuffs. 3 states' worth of corrupt officials fell like dominoes. Miranda and I both got settlements for our trouble, and I took the money and bought the entire Willowbrook Heights property at auction. Turned it into a safe haven for families who'd lost everything to crime. Miranda runs the place, now finally free. So that's my story, how a stubborn IT guy and a woman everyone thought was the villain flipped the script on the biggest criminal operation in the state. But before you think it's a fairy tale ending, let me tell you, justice is only the beginning. I found a list in Grandpa Joe's old safe, names of folks still out there, still looking for payback. Because some secrets never stay buried, and sometimes turning the tables just means a bigger fight's coming. Now I gotta ask, where do you stand? Is justice about revenge or building something better from the ashes? Drop a comment below, share your own story, and let's talk about what it really means to take back your community from people who think they're untouchable.